Thank you for joining us here on Two Balls and a Mic. Today we have an incredibly special interview with for me, I hear this man's voice over my AM radio station. I'm probably one of the only people in my age group that still listens to AM radio. Also happens to be the voice that came through your television station here for the San Diego Loyal, along with just an incredible set of events that happened towards the end of the season. But we want to go ahead and welcome Mr. Jack Cronin. How are you doing, Jack?
Doing fine, fellas. Thanks for having me. I very much appreciate it.
I mean, I'm personally excited. Like I said, I do listen to a lot of AM radio. For those kids out there,
that's great. That's awesome. Look, it's not a dead medium yet. We're still here. Radio's still powerful and important, and that's awesome. I appreciate it.
100%. Sometimes I just drive around mute and just have an AirPod with whatever I'm listening to, just to give a little bit more of a boost. But Jack, we'll start with you in the beginning, man. I know, doing a little bit of research about you, we stumbled upon the fact that you do have a great 20-year career in broadcast and sports media in general, but your degree is in biology. Yeah. How and guide us through this process of how you've ended up with such I'm going to say illustrious career in broadcasting with a biology degree. How did that come about?
It's weird. I was in school at Cal in the early 2000s, and I had a roommate who was in the music at the local campus radio station. And he dragged me down there, and they had openings to do sports. At the time, we weren't very good at a lot of the sports, and so they had plenty of openings and plenty of time, and it was cool. It was a fun thing to do. I'd never even thought about it or done it at all before college, and I thought I would give it a shot. So I'm lucky to still be doing it now, given the industry and everything that occurs. But it's a hard job to come by, but I'm very, very lucky. And it was just kind of a random start in college, and then I was there doing Cal football and basketball, and Aaron Rodgers was the quarterback, and it turned out to be like a kind of a turnaround and a fun atmosphere, and then the Pac-10, and so it just got me hooked, and that's where I started. That was 20 years ago now.
I mean, 20 years ago sounds, even for me, like yesterday. But it's a great sports town to be in here in San Diego. And are there any cool little stories that happened up there in Cal with Aaron Rodgers and a couple of other stars you were mentioning that pop out into your mind?
Well, I mean, when I was up there, we were the student radio station, so we weren't even the commercial radio station. Mm-hmm. We were the student station, which you couldn't really hear unless you're on campus itself. Mm-hmm. But we ended up being the flagship for women's basketball and baseball and a bunch of stuff, and so it felt bigger than it probably really was. And so that I've just been kind of, those kinds of moments have driven me forward, because like I said, at times it's an up and down industry, but you get cool moments like that, calling games at the Coliseum with Aaron Rodgers and Matt Leinart, and big time Pac-10 football, even if it is a college station, and then coming down to San Diego, where my first two jobs here were working for Tony Gwynn and San Diego State baseball, and calling the Surf Dog games with Ricky Henderson. So that's all these cool. You're like, oh man, you look back and those are fun moments, even if it's kind of random, that push you forward from there.
Jack, who also has a snippet on that, Ricky Henderson, 30 for 30. Yeah. Fantastic work, Ricky Henderson, one of my favorite baseball players of all time.
Yeah, so moving a little more ahead in your career, kind of more towards this past year, how did you get notified about the job offer pretty much to do play-by-play for SD Loyal?
So that was, obviously it was during the pandemic. In fact, we had been meeting, up and through, there was a whole broadcast team. It was, 5, 6, 7, 8 people. It was a really cool thing they were putting together before the pandemic. And so there was a bunch of us, you guys know, Darren and Jordan and Shannon and everybody was, so everybody's working. And that first match was on ESPN. So it was a national broadcast with fans in the stands, March 7th. For me, the pandemic starts on March 9th, 2 days later, right? That's when the shutdowns start to happen. Yeah. And the Loyal had one more match on the 11th, but there was no fans, right? So it was this whole weird thing. So we were only going to do certain games. It was going to be road games. We didn't know. Some of them were national, some were local. But that all shut down. when the pandemic hit, and so we didn't know we were going to get back up and running until the middle of July. It was that much up in the air, but it's a huge credit to the team because nobody there panicked, and they kept everything in place and moving forward. The front office, the players, the team, there was no panic, and they moved forward as if it was going to happen, and of course it did, and that set them up really well in July. I was just a small part of that, but we didn't really know, what we were going to do until early to mid-July.
So take me through the mindset of that. I mean, it's interesting because, sometimes I like to think like, what are jobs that are always there? And this now clearly you can see, who would have thought grocery workers would be essential. But take me through the mindset about, you're in sports and there's just no sports. I could tell you, it just don't try to start a sports podcast in the middle of a pandemic when sports literally die. But as far as, not knowing, you saw a bunch of other sports broadcasters across, they were doing play-by-play for them heating up Hot Pockets and whatnot. So
the marble races,
which are actually fascinating.
Yeah.
What are some things that, you did to kind of stay sharp? Because, it is a skill that needs to be sharpened and you need to be on it, keeping up with stats and, just being immersed in that. But how did the pandemic affect you in that way?
Well, I'm really, really lucky. And it's one of the things I would tell people about this particular career is that you have to diversify. You have to be able to do multiple things because something may get taken away. And this is a good example of that. I do a lot of college sports. There was no college sports after that first weekend in March. This opportunity here. So I'm lucky because my day job is also in broadcasting. So my day job is working at News Radio 600 Kogo, which is the emergency broadcast station in San Diego. And so all of a sudden, we became even more important. We exist to make sure people have evacuation routes during wildfires. And if there's a flash flood or a tornado warning or things like that, we're the emergency broadcast station. But this is now a pandemic, which is a different kind of natural disaster. So I didn't have any time, luckily, and I'm very fortunate to have that because so many people in this industry didn't have that opportunity once the pandemic hit. But then I was thrust into that role where it's like, okay, we have to be here for people. And we have to be on the air because people don't know what's going on. It's a new thing. It's a once in 100-year thing. And so for me, that was lucky that I had that as part of a diversified thing. And so I could do that while I was waiting for the possibility of these other things coming back, many of which are not still. And the USL is unique. They got through their season, which is wonderful. And so, yeah, it was very lucky for me to have that other job and be there. People, as we talked about at the beginning, AM radio, that's its purpose, is to be here for people during a crisis point. And obviously the pandemic is certainly that.
Yeah. So tell me, what's the biggest difference between calling games in the stadium with no fans and calling games with fans?
Well, I mean, obviously there's an energy, right? So you don't get the energy of the crowd when you think of soccer is a great example because of all the supporters and the chanting and the singing and just the energy that soccer brings, or big time college football or things like those are energy focused events. So it's certainly different, but for me, I'm pretty much focused no matter what. So I don't, I already call a lot of events in college, for instance. Sometimes you're calling college soccer, there aren't that many people there, right? Like, so for me, I always try and treat everything, whether I call high school sports or college sports, both for myself, because I think it's fun, but for the people who are playing, as if it's the Final Four or the World Cup or the Super Bowl or whatever, even if it's a high school football game on a Friday night. So for me, I'm still able, because I have most of my career has been college or high school or things like that, where there really at times wasn't crowds. It wasn't too different for me. And plus, you're so locked in. I mean, that with the way that our broadcast is produced, you really only have yourself and your partner in your headphones. So even if there was, I couldn't hear anything anyway a lot of times because it's so focused. And later on, we'll get into what happened in that final match. But you're so focused because you don't hear anything anyway. And so there was a match early in the season where Landon actually was telling Darren Smith on his radio show that he could hear Shannon and I calling the match early because there was nobody there. So it was much more different for them, perhaps, to see, to hear that during the live event than it was for us. Because, for us, you're so locked in, you have your headphones in, and you're trying to provide as much energy as you can.
Yeah, and I was actually one of the lucky people that was able to be there live. It's one of those things that I looking back at it, it's incredible that during a pandemic I was able to watch live soccer, and it was thanks to the San Diego Loyal for that opportunity. But yeah, no, you could hear clearly, when you guys would call and we would get excited, and I just look back and be like, oh, that's right. There's thousands of people watching on TV right now. But no, I also found myself kind of trying to, make my way into the game somehow. I know in that John Kempen call, I think it was against Orange County, that he got a penalty call, but it was a clean call and whatnot. He got a red card. But I was very loudly explaining to somebody next to me, 6 feet apart, very loudly, so the fourth official can hear, like, no, yeah, you can't touch the goalkeeper in that area. It's actually never a foul. And so I'd like to think that, they heard that down there and it influenced. But moving into that action, the day by day of calling a match and whatnot, you guys had a great team down there. Obviously, Chiva has a little bit more experience listening to the actual broadcast itself, but just knowing some of the people in there, tell me some of the best experience that you had, either with Shannon, Mr. Virtual Statman, who just compiles the greatest, I don't even know, the media program is just amazing. I just love to just read them sometimes.
Yeah, you're talking about Sean Kelly, who's awesome, yes. Who is our statistician for our broadcast and for the pregame show that the team did as well, which is great because many times at this level, maybe it's in minor league baseball, or maybe it's in college or whatever, or high school, you just don't have stats. I mean, a lot of times you show up somewhere and you've got nothing, and so you're making up just what you see on the field rather than having that kind of background. So he was invaluable. And so, yeah, they did a great job. It's a professional thing. I mean, we were on ESPN Plus, nationwide broadcast. They did a great job supporting us. Having a Hall of Famer like Shannon McMillan on the broadcast is an incredible asset for the viewer and for me to be able just to lay out and have her explain what's going on. To have her presence there, her authority there, her expertise was wonderful. And then, I mean, it's lucky for us to be around Landon and the team. Remember, everybody, they maintain everything all the way through. Jesse Beltran and Ricardo Campos and those guys, like they maintain everything all the way through to support us being on the air. And so it was incredibly easy. There was, for us, very, very simple, easy broadcast for us to do because there was great support.
Definitely, and a lot of those people we've been able to cross paths, and just genuine, hardworking individuals that made this first season, as I don't even know, just as crazy as it was. It seemed very normal, perhaps. I don't even know if that's the right term.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Like, I felt this year like it was even more important to do a broadcast, right? Because a lot of people who would normally watch you would be there.
Yeah.
So like it was a humbling experience. It was awesome, and it felt more important this year to be there for the viewers than it already is. I mean, it already is this important. You're their voice. They're driving around or they're watching at home. They can't be there, but this year was just it was so sad the situation that it felt like, hey, this is much more important than maybe something else might be.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so for me, compared to Tony, that got lucky to go to the games, I was fortunate enough to kind of hold some Zoom watch-alongs with some fans and then just hear the games on TV and watch them. But what we did notice when there were away games and it was different commentators, they made some really big mistakes. They were mispronouncing names. They were calling SD Loyal
or my favorite,
the Loyals.
My favorite. What a goal. What a fantastic.
No excitement whatsoever, which is something we didn't notice when it was home games, when it was you guys. So how did you construct your voice with soccer specifically to like have so much excitement on the broadcast?
Well, and it's, it is difficult because the way it's structured right now, I mean, pandemic is one thing, obviously.
Mhm.
So we're in the pandemic. Um, we only did the home games, and then those home games for us, which are team broadcasts, were picked up by the other team. Maybe we were in Reno or Sacramento on TV summer, or it was also the nationwide ESPN broadcast. So that's a pandemic thing. It's a cost saving thing, instead of traveling, right? So there's all kinds of different reasons. Um, and we were always conscious of the other fans who were watching, but I mean, at the end of the day, we're team employees, so we
Yeah.
are being paid by the team. We're not being paid by ESPN or by CW or Fox, wherever. We're team broadcasters. So our first and foremost thing is to make sure that our team and our fans are taken care of. But we're also very always respectful, and try to, as much as we can, get things right for the other side. And I'm sure we had the same kind of mistakes when a team did pronunciations or stats or things like that. Not Shannon, me, but like but it is your first job is to take care of the team because you are a team employee. But hey, if there was, I mean, I remember Aiden Quinn's goal against San Diego. It's an incredible goal.
Yeah.
So there were times where you have to sit there and you have to be like, man, that's just a great effort by the opposition. You tip your hat.
100%, and to maintain that professionalism throughout
Yeah.
is important. You can really tell that you guys had your stuff together, and again, it was a great pairing. So was it more, how did you approach trying to narrate necessarily? Is it more, I know it's the different roles that you guys play, but there has to be a lot of education that goes into place, especially, with soccer here in the States. There's not a lot of, there's more than you think, but there's not a lot of people that necessarily understands the nuances of the game. So how's it been trying to educate, maybe not yourself or somebody else, but just educate the masses when you narrate a game and call a game?
Yeah, well, first of all, it was incredibly lucky to have Shannon there because there are things that I don't know. Even though I played soccer in high school. My first job was reffing soccer as I was growing up. I love the sport. I follow the sport. I've been lucky to go to a World Cup, so I know and love the sport. But it's just having Shannon there for the simplest of things. She makes it so easy to understand, and so that was great. I think the best thing you can do for somebody who's not as familiar is simply just call it like it normally would be, right? And make your verbiage and your storytelling just normal, not oversimplifying or overcomplicating things. Loyal is interesting because they purposefully are a soccer club.
Mm-hmm.
They're not a football club. And I think that was great. Darren and I talked about this before the season, that means you can use terms interchangeably, and there's no, we can do whatever we want. You can call it soccer, you can call it football, you can call it field, you can call it pitch, whatever. Like, they purposefully said we're going to be San Diego Loyal Soccer Club and not San Diego Loyal Football Club or San Diego FC or whatever. So it just it gives you that freedom, and I think that's okay. I think it's just the best way you can respect people is just by calling it as a normal one. And people will eventually come along if there's great energy and a great product, which obviously the team provided.
And it's something that we were surprised with, honestly, when we started this project, is we didn't really see ourselves covering so much local sports, and the fact that this came about right about the same time that we started our little project is just a testament to how good things are being ran, not just necessarily Loyal, but the USL itself. Because to be completely honest, before San Diego Loyal, I had no idea what USL was, and that's I think that's across the board in a lot of sections here in San Diego. Even now, you just hear San Diego Loyal. Oh, what is it? Oh, is it an MLS team? No. Oh, well, there you go. But what are some of the things that on your side you notice that, well, there is something special here that's different? Obviously, you've worked 13 years for Toreros, and that's a different aspect. But with this new venture, what are some things that stand out and it's like, what, this is actually pretty special, what's happening here, it's gonna work?
Well, the pandemic's a great example of that. How this team didn't fold, but in the literal sense, but fold metaphorically. Didn't shy away from it, didn't run away from the pandemic. You can tell, first of all, having Landon Donovan as part of your organization. Landon is both the greatest men's soccer player in American history, but he's also an incredibly thoughtful human being. And he carries himself with a power that is very impressive because he's thoughtful and he's engaging. So having Landon, having Warren Smith, having Andrew Vassiliadis, those guys lead this kind of club. They come with a resume. And Warren from Sacramento, Landon with what he's done in his career. But then to have like that no panic, everything is solid, everything's buttoned up, there are no gaps. It was just impressive to see the build up to it, the run up, and then obviously, as I said, the pandemic, the way they got through it. So that's from the loyal side, from the team side. From the league, as you said, the quality of play in USL is very impressive.
Yeah.
There are great players. The run of play is very impressive. The product is a good product, and so those are things where you're coming into a new venture and you're saying, okay, how's this going to be? And that first match, that March 7th, because I was there as a fan, I was like, oh, this is a good product, and so that was both fun, impressive, and it's very lucky for us here in San Diego.
Definitely.
Yeah. So obviously with broadcasting, I mean, honestly, it's a gift. You have to have a voice for it, which you have a great one, honestly, a long career, and
I'm jealous.
And it's great, honestly. But I wonder, do you ever is there someone that you look up to, or that you have your own style, but is there someone that maybe you've looked up to and you're like, wow, that style is cool. I like their tone of the voice. I like how they say this. And if so, who's that person?
I don't know that there's one person necessarily. For a broadcaster, as it is on the radio side, if you're trying to be a moderator or a reporter, those kind of things, the best thing you can do is stay out of the way. So if you're not, you're there to tell the story, and so the story is not in the booth. The story is on the field or on the court or whatever it is. I grew up in the Central Valley. Guys like John Miller on the baseball side, who are outstanding. I don't have necessarily one guy. The best thing that I can say is there are a lot of people in San Diego who are people who are like, hey, we'll take you under your wing. We'll let you sit in on a broadcast. We'll share notes with you. We'll tell you how I prepped for it. Those are the more valuable things and you certainly can watch and pick up phrases and ways of doing things. But I think the more valuable things is people, hey, here's how I do it. You don't have to do it this way, but here's how I do it. A guy like Alan Horton, who is the Minnesota Timberwolves broadcaster now, is a guy I worked for in San Diego. Jim Watson, who's at the Pac-12 Network. Guys like Roxy Bernstein, who went to Cal like I did. Those guys who have all been who've all said to me like, hey, look, here's how I do things. How can I help? Even though we're in the same field. And I think those are all valuable things for the industry.
100%. And what I will say is nothing. And I'll play a little something. And I'm pretty sure you've dreamed of this, Jack, and it's been going around in your head the last couple of weeks. Nothing could prepare you for what happened in the last home game for the San Diego Loyal versus Phoenix.
That's a nuance we haven't seen all season either. Is rightfully, ref calls that up, lets them play on. That was not a foul.
And there'll be a red. We got a red issued for Colin Martin. Whoa.
Whoa, indeed. It just leaves me speechless to think of that day and exactly what happened. It's a turning. We've been celebrating Loyal and everything that happened. But obviously, it's something else in a sense to celebrate the action after. But tell me, I mean, all your years, how did this? Obviously, I think the whoa just encapsulates everything. How was that moment for you? Take me through that.
Well, I mean, it's a collection of moments, right? So it's the regular season finale. Mm-hmm. It's a match at the time where San Diego is fighting for a playoff spot, trying to come back to get a playoff spot, having been down in the middle part of the season. And so on the field, it's a fight for a playoff spot against one of the best teams in your entire league. In addition to that, obviously what happened the week before, this is 1 week prior, when Elijah Martin is targeted with a racial slur. That happens in the 71st minute. The team afterwards gets together, realizes what has happened, and calls for the forfeit of the match. Their own point, gives up their own point to make a stand. And so that moment is 1 week prior to this. In us preparing for the Phoenix broadcast, we were going to stop down. And in place of the hydration break, in the 71st minute of the second half of the Phoenix match, the two teams were going to stand together and we're going to stand in solidarity against racism. So we knew that, and we were prepped for it as a broadcast. Obviously, we addressed it in the open. We came on the air. We gave the playoff implications, and in the second part of the open, we said, "This is what this team is fighting for and standing for." And it was a backdrop. I mean, they're wearing their Black Lives Matter jerseys, and so it's a backdrop for this match to take place. And San Diego's winning. So all these things are falling into place, and the game is going. You're calling a regular match, and all you can do is react to what you see. So when the red card is issued to Colin Martin, there was nothing that we saw that happened. There was no tackle, there was no collision, there was no attack or anything like that, a physical attack. So you don't know at the time, and we are very far away, and we also can't hear anything, like I said, other than ourselves. So we're reacting to it. And then we're calling it as Colin gets the red cards. They go to sort things out. And there have been times throughout the season where red cards have been overturned, penalties have been overturned, those kind of things. So it wasn't like it was a foregone conclusion. It was, since we hadn't seen anything, it's always better to just wait and kind of sort things out. And then they end up going to half. Yeah. So it was like, okay, so they went to halftime. So that happened in stoppage time in the first half. And so we still didn't really know what happened, but Andrew Vasiliadis, the owner of the team, who was there at the match, because he's not wearing the headsets that we are, you can see on that video that Landon has the talk with the manager of Phoenix, that Landon looks up and is talking to somebody. That's Andrew, who's the owner of the club, the chairman. And so Andrew knew what had happened. So he told us off the air as we went to break for halftime. But he said, you know what, we're going to wait because we don't know. There might be a cultural difference here. This player involved is Jamaican. That's a Jamaican phrase. Maybe that's not what he meant. So we're gonna we'll wait. We'll see what happens. That was all us from up above looking down, and then he went down obviously to the field, and then we know what they sorted out was that Colin Martin, who is the only openly gay male player in team sports in North America, is targeted with a racial slur with a homophobic slur of all of the things, of all the players to do that to. 1 week after a racial attack, to have a homophobic attack happen. So just the tragedy of that, but knowing too the stand that San Diego had taken, I told my producer down the line, I said, we have to be ready for them to walk off the field because they're not going to stand for it. But at the time we didn't know that. We hadn't confirmed it, so we came back on the air and we said, we think we know what has happened here, but we're going to wait before we tell you until it's confirmed. We don't want to say what it is until it is confirmed. And so we don't know that Landon has gone over and has asked the official to take the player off the field. He has asked the coach to sub the player off the field. And when those two things, and Landon, by the way, got a red card, which was deserved because you can't come onto the field. Yeah, and we knew that too, and that's fine. Mm-hmm. That's totally fine. So all of those things are happening kind of in order, and you're just there to call it for the listener and the viewer. We're on radio at the time, and simulcast to our television broadcast. So you're going along with what is happening, knowing that there could be consequences here. And when they walked off, that was it. And we both, Shannon and I, completely supported it and respected it. And we were prepared for them to do that because they had taken that stand the week before. They had that right, and boy, they were as emotional a broadcast as I've ever done. And Shannon kind of saved it for both of us, kind of just keeping it steady there. So it was a weird moment, but it was such a powerful, amazing moment, and I just amazing respect for Colin, for Landon, for this team. I'm so proud of them. They did an amazing job.
Well, I cannot agree more, man. Like everybody involved in that day, like I'm getting goosebumps right now. Just like again, it's unprecedented in sports. With if you really want to go that way and go the Rick Shantz, well, how long you been in soccer, and it's all about the game and whatnot. All through that halftime, I could tell you that everybody I was right above the Phoenix bench, and everything was just related not to the fact that this was said or done. It was just like, hey, who's this guy think he is? This manager walking on the field. You don't do that in soccer. In soccer, when on the far right, some of the bench players or reserve players were just talking to the team down, saying, hey, get Junior out of there, get Junior Fleming's out of, like, hey, this is not good. And so it's one of the most chaotic, just weird, just I don't even know what to say. It's just scenes, and the fact that you guys kept your composure, and as we were getting escorted out, I could see you and Shannon just standing, and obviously just like leading it into commercial. Just I don't even know, but like you could tell like there was some grade of importance in that small snippet of conversations that you guys were having to let everybody know like what was going on, and I think that that also adds to the bigger picture is the fact that everybody was on the same page, and that's something that I, as a San Diegan, am truly proud of, and cannot be thankful enough for you and Shannon and everybody at San Diego Loyal to take that stance and just follow through with it.
No, they did a really great job. I mean, it was the right thing to do. You can't have a teammate and a family member attacked like that and not respond. And so they did it with class. And they said, look, we are going to sacrifice. It's not just the 4 points between the two matches. It's the ability to go to the playoffs in our first season. I mean, it was a different team by the end of the year. They could have made a run had they made the playoffs. And at that point, they were still in position to do so. And so they were sacrificing their own points, their own playoffs, their own. I mean, these guys are going for future contracts. This is a team that's trying to build on a first season, an inaugural season. And they decided, no, that this was more important, and it is. Mm-hmm. And so they took the stand, and it was powerful, and it was emotional. And I was proud to be part of it. They did a great job.
How do you feel the league handled the situation,
or lack thereof?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I mean, this is, first of all, this doesn't happen very often, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, this doesn't happen. You don't have a team request to forfeit after the fact. You don't have a team walk off as they did there in rightful protest. So it is uncharted territory. I think what Landon and Warren and Andrew said in our season wrap-up at the end of the year was they're not looking for people's careers to be over. They're not looking for franchises to be abolished or punished or whatever, right? Like they are looking to make things better. They're looking for a better future for some of this. And so they don't want to do it in a way that's going to cost people careers and things. They just wanted to say, this is not right, and we can't be a part of this. So it is uncharted, and I know that the team is going to work with the league. I don't know. They didn't do it to have the USL. I don't know. It's just they did it because it was the right thing to do, and that's the most important takeaway from it. That's what their message was. We are doing the right thing. And so we'll see. Yeah, we'll see. If there are changes made here. The league did suspend both players for 6 matches, which is a very large suspension. So it will be interesting to see what they do in the off season with the training and the new protocols and the new. Here's what the punishments are. Here's how we're going to treat these things. Here's why we don't do the. So I think those are all learning experiences that we'll look at in 2021. And
I think, if anything, like San Diego Loyal, the league, and everybody is going to be as ready for anything after a season, which it's marred in controversy for whatever extraneous circumstances happen. But for what it is, you can, like I said, hope that, for 2021, these are things that are addressed and directly addressed. But again, it doesn't happen without the action to stand up for something like this, and the fact that, again, it can't be stated enough. We've been talking with a couple people from across the country who was like, hey, what happened here? And they're blown away by the fact that this happened, and the outpouring of support. Obviously, like we've seen all the way up until BBC with this story carrying over there. You don't. I've never heard the Padres on BBC. I'll just put it that way. But it's great to be represented in such a way. But I do want to ask, as far as, you have the hand on the pulse here in San Diego for sports. Obviously, you call all the way from high school, collegiate, professional here, San Diego. What impact is a team like this and cementing themselves in the community? What does that mean for the city, and the players, the kids that you see, that you call, having a team like this come out and have such a strong stance in things? And look, it's a professional soccer team, something that with weight, there is another one here with 1904, but I think Loyal is a little bit more attractive. How do you see this club coming? How is that going to do? How is that going to affect these kids coming up and what they're seeing, how they're playing?
No, it's a great question, and I think during the pandemic, even before things like this happened, one of the things I said was that teams just need to be there for their fan bases, need to be present for their cities, their towns, their counties, their regions, and their fan bases, and they need to be ready to be there because there isn't normal interaction, and that's charity events. That is just getting out there and saying hi and shaking hands and kissing babies and being there for your community. This obviously takes it a step further here by the stands that they took, and rightfully so, at the end of the year. I worked for the University of San Diego, and they, and many others in college sports is viewed as the front porch to a university. It's kind of an advertisement, a brand, a way to raise awareness, a way to take a look at a school for reasons that aren't related to sports. But athletics is a great way to brand and advertise yourself and be an ambassador for your university. And I think this here was an amazing way to say hello to San Diego, to prove the values that we all knew by working there already, but to prove those values. And two, to have somebody like Landon Donovan be as big a part of that is another amazing step in this process. So sports are a front porch to a city. They are an ambassador for a city. And I think San Diego was very well served by what this team stood for at the end of 2020.
100%.
Yeah, so what would you say is the biggest takeaway for this first season in general, as someone who just witnessed everything that happened?
Well, I think there's a couple of things. First, it's this what we're talking about right here. It's the values that the team stood for and already exhibited up until that point. It's taking the name of the club to a literal whole new level. And so it's showing the community, this is what we're for, and this is what we are going to do in the future. That's the first thing. And it's a tip of the hat to everybody involved there. A lot of respect for that. And then the second part is that the product moving forward is actually very good. There were, John Kempen, Miguel Berry, Rubio Rubin, Alejandro Guido. I mean, these are great players who, when you have that kind of level of play already, and you have Landon Donovan as your manager, the quality of the product is very good. And so those two things combined are moving forward here to 2021 in a good way. And by the way, that's coming pretty quick. Even if it's delayed by a few months because of the pandemic, it's still going to be here in a couple of months. So we'll see.
Yeah, you got to start, wrapping it up. I guess the championship game is coming up for USL. So, yeah, the turnaround's going to be pretty quick. But in having that experience in this first year, what are some of the things that you wish that the people could have seen? Maybe those interactions with the players, or just the little things that you wish would have been like, wow, I really wish there would have been a crowd here, or in otherwise non-pandemic times would have come across in any other sporting team throughout a season.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I wish there would have been fans there, because that gives us and everybody else a huge energy and a boost to what you are doing. So I obviously wish people could have been there. And I wish people could see, first of all, how good these guys are. But Shannon talks about it all the time, what good humans these guys are, in addition to being great players. And then to see how the front office interacts with the coaches and the players, and how Landon in particular interacts with everybody around him, is incredibly impressive. And so those different layers of constructing a team, I wish people could see that, because it would bring you that much closer to what they're trying to do. But obviously, when you get 6,000 people, that's a great venue. I mean, if you have not been, University of San Diego, where I call football and soccer right now, at that stadium, that's a College Cup stadium. That's a professional stadium. That's 6,000 plus seats. And you're right on top of the action.
Yeah.
That's a great place to watch soccer. So I'm looking forward to the time when 6,100 can get back in there.
Question: did you get to commentate when Miguel Berry was playing for Toreros?
Yes.
So
I got to call his.
How different was it commentating when he was a college player to a professional player?
Not much. I mean, it's not much different. His skill set translates, right? I mean, his assets are, he is so tall for a striker. He's got great speed combined with great skill. Like, a player of that size usually does not have all of those things. You might be a target forward. You might be somebody who's not as skilled or whatever. Like, he has all of those. And so he was, a top 2 or 3 in the country in points and goals. He was WCC Player of the Year. And he learned from Brian Quinn, who's a great coach, and Seamus McFadden at USD. So, no, it's for him. We all knew he was going to be an MLS player, and it was great to have him be in the USL as he is training for that next level, because he's going to be a great star.
Yeah, so we're going to start wrapping it up. We like to do one last question. As Tony likes to call it the golden ticket. We're going to change it up a little bit, though, for you. If there was one game for any sport, professional, any level, high school, college, professional, that you would have liked to commentate, like being there and being the commentator live for any game, what game would that be?
I don't know that I have one in the past. It would be, it would be great to call something like, let's say, like a World Cup, any World Cup match. I find the World Cup to be the greatest thing in all of sports. My favorite teams to root for are the U.S. men's and women's national teams. Those are my teams that I'm the most of a fan of. And I find the World Cup and its energy to be the greatest thing in sports. So I don't know that there's one match in particular. Landon scoring in 2010, comes to mind. But
it was
just any, yeah.
It was all right.
But it was, just any of those matches, whether it be group stage or finals, that kind of energy. In fact, the group stages are probably better because there's the nations can have their own fans there, and so it's really. Any of those for me would be an absolute honor.
I like that.
Speaking of World Cup, Jack, so this is why we started this. 2026. The goal for this podcast is to make it to the 2026 World Cup with press passes. How do we make that happen? What are the steps that we need to take?
Well, you're doing a great job right now.
Sweet.
Which is, obviously you're knowledgeable about the sport itself. You're covering it in a great way. You have access to a great club to start with here. The number one thing is just be professional. And as long as you're professional and respectful, doesn't mean you have to bow down to anything, but it's just being professional and respectful. And people will treat you as such. If you act that way, people will treat you like that. And there is no reason why you shouldn't be able to do that come 6 years from now. There's no reason. Because if you treat the game and the sport and journalism in the way that you are and being respectful, then it will treat you back the same way.
We can only hope, and I'm really going to do everything. And obviously, I do tell this to some of the people that I listen to radio and I communicate with them. Judson over on Extra and everybody. For me personally, I listen because that's my study. That's my film to study. And I go back and I do listen to those home games with you and Shannon. And again, just studying it up because that's learning from the best, right? And so. Thank you for your time, Jack. We hope to see you in 2021. If you could stick around just a little bit so we can do a little follow-up. But hope to see you. And Shannon, sticking your heads out, something that I wish everybody would see, as you guys see that, the west side or east side corner kick. Yeah.
That's right.
But thank you for your time, Jack. I know you have a busy schedule, especially with the elections coming up. We want to let everybody know where they can find you and anything else that you have going on.
It's just Jack Cronin PXP on Twitter. That's the easiest way to do that. And we'll find out what Darren and I and everybody else are up to here with the team and stuff. So, guys, I appreciate the time. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.